Welcome to the adult Colby Bralette from Petite Stitchery. Okay, today this is my favorite, okay, because it has all the techniques in it. And this picture right here, this is the version that we're going to make here in the tutorial, but you have so many other options, okay? You can do knit or lace. Here's all the versions you can use. There's a closed front or a little cutout front. And the back is a V back bodice with a 3-inch waist. Here are your fabric requirements. They're pretty much the same across all sizes. It goes from a 28-inch bust to a 50 bust. Okay, so then here are your recommended fabrics, stretch knits with at least 50% 4-way stretch. You want a lot of stretch in this bralette because you put it on over your head. Table of contents, you guys know what I'm going to say. Read this pattern 3 times, okay? So you want to get started with reading the pattern. All seam allowances are 3/8 inch. And look at your fabrics. If you have a throwaway fabric, something that you don't mind practicing on, use that first, especially if you are a beginner and have not made a bralette before, okay? Or if you haven't made this type of bralette, use a fabric that you don't mind, practicing on. It is a PDF printable. It's also a projector file and an AO. So decide how you're going to receive the pattern. And then you're going to be putting it together. Here's a note. In the PDF version, it's layered. So you can take away the sizes that you don't need to use. And here are the pages that you'll print based on your size. So your cup sizes here, like if I did a D, double D, these are the pages that I printed. So it's really easy. You don't have to print all of the pages. There you go. And then here is how you determine your size. Example, here's your high bust. And you're going to measure above your breast, right under your arm, comfortably snug. Your full bust, that's across the fullest part of your bust. And then your under bust, right underneath your breast, where the bralette elastic will sit. Pull the tape comfortably snug there. And then you make, you subtract the numbers, and then you have your cup size, okay? And then your band size is based on the under bust measurement. Okay, let's keep going. Fabric and notions. Here it just shows you all of the different fabrics that are that you can use. But again, try it out, make a muslin. And if you need to change the neckline, things like that, and you can determine that after you make your first one, okay? And then it just goes on, and there's your cutting guide, right? And then the instructions are here, and the pattern pieces are here, okay? So we want to get started. I will start with laying out, showing you how I lay out the pattern. And throughout the tutorial, you'll hear me go off script. I may not follow the pattern with its specific instructions or even in order, because I've got some best practices that makes it easy for you. So welcome to this tutorial, the adult Colby Bralette from Petite Stitchery.
I have traced and cut out my pieces. I traced mine on the projector. I'm like, I got a new projector, so I'm just trying something out. So anyway, here is the inner front, side front. Here's the back, and here's the bottom band. Let me show you the fabric I'm going to use. I'm going to do a beautiful lace. Here's a gray lace that I have had, and I have not had a chance to make anything out of it. It's a stretch lace. It stretches only one direction, okay? It's a stretch lace, and I'm going to line it with Bratober. Bratober is really soft to the skin, and it's just stretchy enough to support a stretch lace. So it'll act like a really good lining and give you a little support, but it gives a tiny bit of stretch also. That's what keeps it so soft. My back piece, I'm going to lay it. Y'all see I put the squiggly lines on there to indicate the lace edge. So I'm going to lay it right on the valleys of the lace, meaning the bottom edge of the lace. And that's where I'm going to cut it. I'm going to do the same for the front piece. You notice the front piece can be lined up right here, but then here's a cut right here, so they join. This is the center front, or the inner front, and here's the side front. I'm going to make that fit all on one piece there. This doesn't need scallops on the edges. This is your side front. Then I'll do the bottom band the same way. Here's the steps I'm taking to put it together. Here's the front. I stitched the front and I stitched it so I have an enclosed seam with the lining. So here's the front lining and lace. And here's the two pieces. I'm going to put these together also. And I already stitched the back right at that straight stitch point. It's only about 1 inch. So when you stitch the back band on, you're going to take up most of that seam allowance, so it'll look really seamless, the V coming down your back. But I want to show you how I'm enclosing the lining. This is just a bra making technique that I love to share because you don't have to deal with putting pieces together separate or having a seam on the inside touching your skin. So basically it's main fabric, main fabric. So put this here. I'm just going to stitch here. And then the two lining pieces will be stitched together also. So put this underneath. So there's lining, lining, main fabric, main fabric. And then when you stitch, you'll just pull it out and it'll be, the seam will be enclosed. Let me show you. So I've pinned the side front to the center front, the inner front, and here's a tip. I didn't pin it, I clipped it because I use clips. So here's a tip. When you put it on there, I've got main fabric, lining, lining. Put it together and look and make sure it's what you want. Don't sew it yet. Just clip it or pin it and make sure it's what you want. Here's your main fabric, here's your lining, lining, and it's going to be an enclosed seam. So the whole front is put together and all the seams are enclosed. Now, if your lace shows a really wide seam like this one, I'm going to trim this down and then top stitch just to give it some more security, just like the middle's been top stitched. And then we will put together the back. At the shoulders, doing the same thing, enclosing the seams, and we'll do the same thing with the sides when it's time. The next thing we're going to do after we put the shoulders together with the back, we're going to put the elastics on before we enclose the seam, the side seams. So here's the front and back, right sides together, and I did one shoulder, and the lace is enclosed. That's the front side. Let me show you how we did that. Right sides together, fabric, lace, main fabric, because you may not be working with lace. Line them up. Come on. That's your lace. And then take that last piece of lace and flip it and put the right sides there. So you've got lace, lining, lining. Okay, I'll do that again. Everything is right sides together. Here's your lining. Here's your second piece of lining, and in this case it's the back. Just flip it over around. And pin or clip it, and then flip it back over and make sure it's what you want. Let's go. Now it's elastic time. And just want to put a reminder here. I've been using a straight stitch, stitching the pieces together, okay? Just think your zigzag stitch is for areas that are going to stretch. You don't want this to stretch. You don't want this to stretch on the front. So now that we're putting elastics on, you're going to use a small zigzag stitch. I am going to use a clear elastic. Okay, it's a clear lingerie elastic. It's about 3/8 inches wide. And I'm going to put it on the neckline behind the lace. And then when we put the waistband on, I'm going to use another elastic. I'll show you that when we get there. So here's how the neckline, and the pattern you'll see, it says 1 to 1, meaning you're not going to stretch the elastic. You're going to lay it down because it stretches already. The lace stretches already, the bra tulle that I'm using here. I'm not sure about your lining, but the everything will stretch, but the elastic gives you that hug so it doesn't like stretch out or anything, because elastic only stretches so far, right? So you're going to lay the elastic down. Let's go this direction. And we're going to go all the way around the neckline. I'm going to start in the back, lay the elastic down, and just keep going. Stop at the back and then come up the other side. So it looks like this. A big triangle. Lay it down, keep going, and come back and stop here. A tiny zigzag stitch. Here's a quick tip. I use a 3-step zigzag on my elastics. It looks like that. Oh, come on. Number 15. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can see that, okay? So once I select it, then, because I don't want it that wide, my machine shows this. Not all machines will show you, but but you'll get the point. I don't like it that wide, so I will lengthen it. I'll show you what the numbers look like. And I'll narrow the width. So I'll make it really wide. Most machines will go up to maybe 12, and then you can bring this down to, you can do a 2.5 or you can do a 3. This is what I typically do, but it's still a zigzag, right? It's still a 3-step zigzag, but it mimics a straight stitch, and it doesn't just jam all over your elastic. Depending on how wide your elastic is, and remember my lingerie elastic. So you can see that. I think it's kind of in real. You know, you can kind of see how that's going to lay down on my lingerie elastic. If your elastic is wider, you can play with it. Okay. So, but that's my three-step zigzag setting. What you want to do is lay your elastic down right on top of the lining, but still at the valleys of your scalloped edge. Okay. Let's just get a good start. And don't pull it. Just make sure it's laid down taut, because you don't want your lace or your lining to pull. And then take it all the way around, and you'll have a good hug on your neckline. See how the stitch looks? And this is how it looks on the right side. Giving your skin just enough hug. Now that we've done the neckline with your clear elastic, let's do the armholes and the waistband. Okay, open up the bralette. So you're looking at the armholes here. I am using my regular 3/8 inch elastic that I use on all my lingerie. I've custom dyed it for this fabric. So what we're going to do, we're going to do these side seams in 2 steps. So here's the armhole. Take your elastic. This is the inside of the bralette. Here's your elastic. We're going to lay it down on the edge. Now, those of you that are fortunate enough to have and know how, that's the part I meant, know how to use a cover stitch, I'll tell you that joke later. This would be a really great time to use it. Okay, so lay it down, and then you're going to fold it over, but first we're going to do the side seams. So I'll show you that step by step. Lay the elastic down. You're going to use your 3-step zigzag or your regular zigzag. You don't have to use the 3-step if you don't like, or you can use your cover stitch. Okay, here is our first pass at the underarm elastic. Okay, the armhole elastic. I laid it down. Now what we want to do, remember how we are enclosing seams with the lining? Open the lining and the main fabric. So put the main fabric together. And put the linings together. Okay. Put the linings together and do a straight stitch down the lining, past the elastic, and down the main fabric. And once you stitch it, you're going to turn it over, and we'll do the second turn on the elastic. Let me show you. Check it out. Okay. I opened up the side seam and I stitched all the way down from the lining, main fabric, and then you're going to turn it down, and there's your side seam. The lining, so you've got an enclosed seam again, and then now we're going to fold down the elastic for the second pass, and see how clean that is. Now just fold the elastic down and do your zigzag stitch again, and you'll have a armhole where the elastic is turned down very cleanly. So let's go back to the waistband. And I should have put this in the beginning, and I may, but for lace, you only want that much. This bottom band is designed for all the pieces. So let's fold it in half. And this is going to be your bottom band because you want the lace scallops on the edge. And then cut right here. All right, here's our bottom band. And it's going right there. And we're going to use our elastic also. So here's some options as well. Depending on your lace, you want to do a stitch of your clear elastic right at the bottom, right across the bottom. It provides the same hug as your neckline does. So let's do a straight stitch to put it together. Let's position the seam in the back of the bralette and stitch it around. Straight zigzag stitch, because this is an area where you want it to stretch, and you're going to have elastic there also. Here's my waistband. I've stitched it where I'm going to put the seam in the back, and I did a little French seam so I wouldn't have an exposed seam there, especially in this delicate lace. So here's a tip on how to put your waistband on your bodice evenly. Okay, line up your back seam first because you have a specific seam there. You've got one in the back to match up and one in the front, but since you only have one seam, line up the back and then just put the waistband Just drop the bodice down inside the waistband, okay? And then you want to measure out. Just pull it and put your fingers on the front. Here's your center front. You shouldn't have too much stretching to do because the pattern piece is designed to fit. But depending on the stretch of your fabric, this is a good best practice to do. So here's your center back, here's your center front, and you've got it stretched to fit. Put a pin or a clip right here. And then do the same thing for the sides, lining up the back and the center. Okay, and if you got any stretch that you have to get, you'll have it even. So there's the center and the back. Then you've got your side seams right at your fingers. Get this one. Let's pin here. And pin here. And then you want to pin in between. And just make sure everything is even. So you can pin here, pin in the center of each section. And then you just have your waistband should be stitched on evenly. There you go. We are almost done. All right, let's put our elastic around the waistband so you can have some nice stretch there. Pull the waistband back. Oh, I got some threads there. Pull the waistband back. And what we're going to do is stitch the elastic on the bodice side of the seam that you just made. Let's stitch the elastic on the bodice side of that seam, because after you finish stitching, we're going to turn it up this way and hide the elastic. Okay, so open up the seam, push your waistband up, and we're going to stitch the elastic on the bodice side of that seam, just the seam. That's where we're going to stitch the elastic. So the elastic is stitched. I used my 3-step zigzag, so it has a lot of stretch. And now I'm going to turn it up on the bodice side and stitch it again. We are done. Let me tell you why I like this bralette. It has so many layers to different techniques for you if you are a beginner and you've never made a piece of lingerie, you've never made a bra or a bralette. That's why we do bralettes and bottoms in October, because you get a sense of how to make a piece of lingerie with all the techniques without having to deal with wires and all of that, okay? It's elastic fabric. And 9 times out of 10, you have worked with stretch fabric, rather, and elastics. So you've got the lingerie elastic, the clear elastic to give you a hug on your neckline. You've got regular 3/8 inch elastic on the armholes and the waistband. You've got lace, you got lining, and you don't have to use lace or lining. Lace. You can use a jersey knit. It can be a top that you sleep in with some pajama bottoms, or it can be a beautiful undergarment, or it can be a bralette that you wear with a jacket. Just give yourself a lot of grace and just jump in and do whatever you want. Follow the pattern. Sometimes when I do a tutorial, I'll jump around a little bit, or I won't do it exactly in the order. That's because I know some best practices that I want to share with you. So do both. Look at the tutorial and look at the pattern, and I'll make it make sense for you. Have fun with this pattern. It's really cool. Thank you, Petite Stitchery, for this pattern. The Colby Bralette. It is lovely. See you next time.